Junior, so feel free to participate as you're able.
Well, in the name of love, I welcome all of you to CSL Parker. And it is just so wonderful to have you all with us today. Never know these days what the weather's going to be like, or I thought I was going to be out shoveling snow this morning. And instead of snow, it was smoke. We are thrilled to have you here. CSL Parker is an inclusive community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all creeds, all colors of skin, whatever it is you are. I hope you feel welcome this morning. Let's just begin with a prayer. And I know in this moment, we allow ourselves to be emptied so that there is room to fill with the beautiful music, the meditation, reading, the message, knowing that everything and everyone here blesses us, that we truly are deeply grateful for this opportunity to have an in-person service, to see our spiritual friends again, to be here, to hug, mostly to bump elbows, to send love to one another, knowing that the Spirit of all life fills this room and it fills each person from the top of our heads to the tip of our toes. I know each person here is absolutely blessed, as is this service. Knowing this to be the truth, I invite you to join me now in blessing this prayer by saying, and so it is. This morning we are blessed with our CSO Parker musicians, led today by Lisa. And what a group they are. We can be just so proud of them. Now, CSO Parker has a 30-year intention, a vision for itself. And if you know the vision, you can say it with me. I'll read it. And if you just want to take it in silently, that's fine by me also. The Center for Spiritual Living, Parker, is a global resource to help people discover and live their spiritual truth. And now, we are so blessed to have Bob Collins with us today to do a meditation.
Thank you, sir. I first walked into the middle school on January 25th, 2009, and Reverend Vern was speaking. And surely the presence was sung. And so it's with incredible gratitude that I have this opportunity to serve today. So join with me. Shake it out if you haven't already. Loosen those neck muscles, settle your feet, relax the shoulders. And know that the presence is in this place. Each person carries that torch of the divine inside. We make room for more and more and more today. The opportunity to fill the vessel. Fill the vessel with joy. Breathe in that conviction that the divine is right here, encircling, embracing. The cool of each breath is the divine. As I exhale, I feel that warmth. I allow the door to be wide open. Embrace that oneness. That common anchoring truth. Separation is just a dream. Unity is truth. Oneness is truth. God is right here. I realize the full joy, that wave of spirit. I realize that it is my birthright and the birthright of each and every individual here. Each and every individual who is seeking the truth. And for those who don't know it's inside, well, today we will learn and know and be convinced that every journey completes where I started, with a new realization, a new knowing, a new conviction. And God is right here. I let it settle. I let it fill that void. I keep the door wide open. I release my word knowing this truth, knowing it permeates each and every spiritual seeker. And I come back right now to hear the wisdom, to listen to the beauty of our team that's playing these wonderful, inspirational songs in harmony with the message. I release my word knowing the perfection of this day unfolds. So it is.
So it is.
Our reading today is from a wise man who was an inspiration to Ernest Holmes, Thomas Troward. And I keep a couple of his books on my phone. And I opened it up the other night, not yet knowing the topic for today. And Thomas was talking about unity. So in his book, The Hidden Power, it was written in the early 1920s. The Hidden Power, starting on page 129, the central idea Jesus impressed upon his disciples at their last meeting before his crucifixion is that of the absolute identity and out oneness of the Father and the Son. The principle of perfect unity of God and humanity. This was the great truth he was trying to impress upon his disciples' minds when he knew his bodily presence was so shortly to be removed from them. The truth of unity. The falsehood is the assertion of separateness. The assertion that God and humankind are not one. The idea of separateness is precisely the principle on which the world has proceeded from that day to this. The assumption that God and humanity are not one in being, and that matter is somehow the different essence than spirit. The principle that finds favor with those of the present age who think themselves sophisticated in that idea of duality. The idea of two powers and two substances opposing each other, and therefore repugnant to each other, permeating all things and leaving no wholeness anywhere. Thus it is that the principle of the present age can have no part in that principle of perfect wholeness, which the great master embodied in his teachings and in himself. The two ideas are absolutely incompatible, and whichever one we adopt as our leading principle, it must be to the entire exclusion of the other. We cannot serve God and separation. There is no such thing as partial wholeness. Either we are still in the principle of separateness and our eyes are not yet on the real nature of the kingdom of heaven, or else we have grasped the principle of unity and the one being that includes all, the body and soul alike, the visible form and the invisible substance, and life of all equally. Nothing can be left out. We stand complete here and now, lacking no faculty, but requiring only to become conscious of our own power and to learn to have confidence in them through having exercised that power by reason of using it. So it is.
So it is.
Thank you for that lead-in, Bob.
One power, one power, one power. There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth, as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Jesus, call it Spirit, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of love in you and me. One power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names. The different is only dangerous, and we forget that in the heart we're all the same. And we'll remember when we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem or heaven's door. But the universe, it's music, to solar, it's your sign. It's the universe, it's Mother Earth, or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the air we breathe. It's the power of love in you and me. One power, one power, one power.
Aren't they great? Wow. And listening to Bob, it's just, he's got such a melodic voice, does he not? Wow. It's been a while. Get a little nervous when I first start, but I've settled in. On July 30th of this year, I had some eye surgery. And mistakenly, I told the surgeon, a 35-year-old young lady, by the way. They get younger all the time. And so I said, well, you know, I don't want a general anesthesia. I don't want to have a needle stuck in my veins. I've done enough of that. So just give me the shots to deaden it in both sides of my eyes. And about a second time, she put the needle in, I said, oh, mistake, mistake. And I began to almost swear, and she goes, go ahead, I'm used to it. And while she was performing the procedure, it was really cool because I was able to converse with her. And we began talking, and in the middle of all that was going on, I could kind of feel the little razor tickling my skin, and it was like, ooh. I'm just saying that to kind of get a reaction. Did it work? Anyway, so she's just cutting away, and I have her describe the tool so I can really vividly recreate it for myself. Anyway, I'm there, and all of a sudden I realized my eyelids had begun to droop over the years. And they had become mere slits, and my peripheral vision was so bad, I was a little bit concerned about driving, and my vertical vision was not as good. Then I began to realize that these changes occur so slowly over our lives, we hardly ever notice it, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, it's the same thing that happens with us in life. Most of you are familiar with the book by Don Ruiz called The Four Agreements. And everyone pretty much has the Four Agreements memorized. But in my opinion, the preface to the Four Agreements is probably as significant as the Four Agreements themselves. And in that, the author tells us about how we have become domesticated. Domesticated. We don't even get to pick our own names, he tells us. And one of the things about the human species over time is that we have learned to judge and not let go, and to repeat it many times. Now, I believe that within each of us there is an inner nag. Can you relate to that statement? And that inner nag is always there to say, oh, you could have done that better, you should have done that differently, whatever it is. Now, here's the thing about judgment, according to Don Ruiz. We have the ability, shocking as it is, to never forget. And so we repeat our judgments over time. And he says that we can judge something thousands of times. And if you don't believe me, think about something that happened a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago for some of us. And we can remember it like yesterday. Somebody said that one thing to us that we'll go, oh my gosh. And do we let it go? Not always. And we'll talk about that later in this conversation because it's important that we learn to let go. So I'll be describing for you some strategies about how to let go. because it's not always easy. Simple, but not easy. Now, the Science of Mind magazine has this month a person writing the daily guides called Tracy Brown. And it's one of the most powerful series I've ever read in the daily guides. And she really gets after it on this thing called inclusivity. And on August 3rd, she said this, and quoting a gentleman named Joseph Worthland, "The Lord did not create the earth with a vibrant orchestra of personalities only to value the piccolos of the world. Every instrument is precious and adds to the complex beauty of the symphony." And so what we have learned over time is if we are a piccolo and somebody else isn't, then we get to pick fault at why they aren't a piccolo, because a piccolo is the best instrument in the symphony, of course. Bob read very appropriately from Troward this morning, and Troward is one of my favorite authors also, and he wrote and described a thing called the law. And Ernest Holmes, many people will tell you, his genius was not his original thinking, but his ability to organize all the great thinkers of the world, including the Bible, and bring it together. And so what he got from Troward was the law. Now he says there's three aspects of our being that allow us to create: the spirit, the law, and the effect, or the body, if you will. Now the law, and we all have this within us, the law is one of the most amazing, inclusive aspects of God that ever exists, because the law does not discriminate. Here's the other thing about the law that I think is so cool. I remember Reverend Phil last week talked about the law is our best friend. Well, the other thing about the law that makes it our best friend, or perhaps our greatest nemesis, is it always says yes. Did you know that there's a part of you that always says yes? And it is very mechanical, it is very plastic, it is very impressive. So we can say unto the law, anything we want, and the law will do our bidding. Well, I think that's pretty fantastic myself. Because here we have this instrument inside of us that will go forth and create whatever we tell it to create. We say it's good, it says it's good. We say it's not so good, and it says it's not so good, only we usually don't say that in such positive ways, do we? So the law is really a very, very inclusive aspect of us, and it creates for us, and it does not argue with us. This is the key about the law. It doesn't say, you know, that was a bad idea. You should think about that again, because it's going to create trouble for you. It's free will. It says, go ahead. You said this, I'll do it. Well, that's the law. Now let's move on, and I want to talk a little bit about my preparation for this talk, which began about 6 weeks ago. And those who have done these talks can verify that it's a process. Our spirit begins to download for us all these wonderful ideas to the point where we're almost overloaded. So one day I was in my sliding rocker, which I've had for over 20 years, and I'm meditating and I'm just open. And I'm thinking about this talk, and all of a sudden, there was total silence. Total silence in this being. And the thing that followed the silence was, if you're going to do a talk on inclusivity and non-judgment, you need to go back and look at this whole notion of how did you personally evolve to a place where you got beyond judgment. And that journey for me, there's a lot of books. My students a couple years ago said to me, what are the top 10 books you'd recommend for people? And I'm like, well, there were 20 by the time I got done, but I narrowed it down. And so today I have 3 of those books with me. And the one I'm going to share next is a book called Power versus Force by David Hopkins. David Hopkins did a lot of research and spent about 10 years developing a concept of measurement of consciousness. And in this measurement of consciousness, he described a realm of going from a level of 25, which is the lowest level, which is shame. And it builds up and builds up and builds up to 200, which is kind of a neutral point. And then it goes on up to 1,000. And 1,000 would be the enlightened masters of our planet, the Buddha, the Christ, all the great, great masters. And it's interesting, I have to be careful because I'll get off on a lot of sidebars here. It's like Christianity started out at a very high number and it got eroded over time. And it was because people were running it that did not have the high consciousness. Well, I can tell you honestly that in my life, I started at 25. I was brought up in a home of 25. In a religion that was 25, in my opinion. And I've evolved, I don't know how far, but hopefully a lot further than that. And so what I was beginning to realize about this thing called judgment is if we allow our consciousness to grow enough, we can get beyond the place of judgment. Now, even the evolved beings will dip back down into judgment occasionally. That's just how it is. But what I learned about it from my own life is that as I began to evolve, the judgments began to fall away. Now, the thing about shame and those other lower levels is that we at those stages believe totally in separation. There's you and there's me and I'm better than you. Get the picture? And I take great delight in being better than you, and I continually document that for myself within, all right? I'm like, oh, here's my evidence, and if I judge you, I can document it. Oh, yes. Oh, though for the grace of God, there go I. Oh, my. And so as we evolve, we let go of all that clinging to separation. A couple interesting things about the path of evolution. Some of us had our lives lived with an addiction. And an addiction usually begins at shame or somewhere in that neighborhood, which isn't a real pleasant neighborhood. Now here's a fascinating thing. As one goes to a 12-step meeting from a 25, the 12-step meeting is a 600. wow. And people say a lot of times about classes or spiritual gatherings like this, wow, I get there and I feel so good. It's that group consciousness that elevates everyone times whatever number. White supremacy groups, by the way, operate at 150, which is anger. In our country right now, there is great division. Am I correct in that? Well, I've given this a lot of thought, and in my own humble opinion, we're seeing the underbelly of the country right now, and healing cannot occur unless it's brought to the light. And so for healing to occur, it takes many of us holding the higher watch, the higher consciousness. And I'm going to give you a number that it will seem staggering to you, but it's really true based on David Hopkins' research. I have to get a drink here, sorry. That research says that one person, one of us, operating at the level of 400, that's 300, there's 400, counterbalances all of those below 200. One person at 400 counterbalances for 400,000 people. Now think of the power that you and I hold. We think, oh, what can I do? We have this for a president, we have this for Congress, we have this going on, we have that going on, we have the pandemic. Well, if we want to spend our time focusing on those things, we can. But I tell you, that's the low vibration. We need a lot of us holding the high road. And what is the thing you and I can do? Continue to build our consciousness. So before I finish this talk, I'm going to talk about some ways we can build our consciousness. And I cannot leave this topic without talking about our favorite pets, dogs and cats. A dog, according to Hopkins, vibrates at a level of 245. Now for the cat lovers in the room, same number. So we don't want to get into judgment about either one of those species, right? Do you see how easy it is for us to move to judgment? Now, if a cat purrs, it jumps from 245 to 500, which is love. A dog, when it wags its tail, moves from 245 to 500, which is love. That's really cool to know, isn't it? So, now I have a story about dogs. Oh, I gave it away. Just forget I just said about dogs. If you can start the day without caffeine, if you can get along without pet pills, if you can always be cheerful, ignoring aches and pains, if you can resist complaining and boring people with your troubles, if you can eat the same food every day and be grateful for it, if you can understand when your loved ones are too busy for any time, if you can overlook it when those you love take it out on you when through no fault of your own something goes wrong, if you can take criticism and blame without resentment, if you can ignore a friend's education and never correct him or her, if you can resist treating a rich friend better than a poor friend, if you can face the world without lies and deceit, if you can conquer tension without medical help, if you can relax without liquor, if you can sleep without the aid of drugs, you can honestly say that deep in your heart you have no prejudice against creed, color, religion, gender, preference, or politics. Then you will have almost reached the same level of development as your dog. So we have a choice. We have a choice of seeing the faults or seeing the best. Someone shared with me a week or two ago about when they were growing up, their father would take them out for rides in the country and they'd see a beautiful scene and the kids in the back seat were pretty quiet and he'd say, "Wait a minute, where are your oohs and your ahs?" And then when I heard that story, I thought, where are our oohs and our ahs for the people we love, for the people we know? What if we said, ooh, ah? By the way, I see a fly flying around here, and when I was sitting here and Bob was doing this prayer, this little fly came over sitting on my leg, and it was going like this. So it hurt you, Bob. Okay, now I want to finish up with a dialogue about consciousness elevation. I thought about this quite a bit, but I think it's important that if we're going to travel this spiritual journey and help each other along, there are certain ways we can do it. And before I get into those, I want to tell you, in addition to the power versus force, the other book obviously is this thing called You. And my third book that's in my library is Richer Living. And now it's been changed into a book, I believe, called 365 Days of Richer Living. And this book is good because it has daily writings by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. Now, here's the thing about that. Have you noticed in our world that there's things like the media gives us the news, and we have the weather, and we have the virus, and we have all this? Isn't it easy to get inundated with all that stuff? Well, where's our spiritual oasis come from? And I have had several people ask me, well, what would you recommend for a starter kit? A starter kit for me is Richer Living, this thing called You, not the Science Mind textbook, because it really needs assistance. I think that's my own bias about it. And then, what was the other one? Oh, then the Science Mind magazine. This, especially this month, has been so incredible. And those are musts. They sit right beside my sliding rocker. And there isn't a day that I miss because that is my spiritual sustenance. So if you don't have a spiritual practice, I highly recommend in these tough times that you get one going. Now, you thought I'd forget, I didn't. I have 5 consciousness elevation practices one can use. I had 10 or more, but I had a friend say that's too many. We can't remember 10, just give us a few. So I've narrowed it down to 5. combined a few, sneaky me. One is prayer and meditation. Whenever anything fails, go to prayer. And right now in our country, people always say to me, well, what can I do? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is always pray. And pray especially for the people that you're judging. Now that seems counterintuitive, but it is totally the way to live. And it leads me to my second point, which is forgiveness and letting go. Remember, Don Marie said we carry things around thousands of times. Let it go. Evolution, spiritual evolution, is as much about what we release and what we let go as what we take on. It's not about what new spiritual thing can I learn. It's about what can I forget. So forgiveness for me is my forgetting, my letting go tool. And I judge, I cannot tell a lie. I judge. But what I do when I'm in the middle of judgment, my body usually tells me that feels yucky. So I know that that's my message. I need to do some forgiveness work, and so I instantly go to forgiveness. And I usually use the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is simply, I love you, Spirit. I'm sorry for judging, usually myself, but someone else sometimes. So please forgive me. And then the next part of that is thank you. Because we need to know that we can let it go, and my thank you is my letting go. We're ready for number 3. Gratitude. Gratitude for whatever it is. Butterworth says to us, Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics, be grateful for nothing. Be grateful for all things. And many times we think, well, I have to have something to be grateful. No. You know what it's about? It's about growing and developing a grateful heart. And I notice the healthier I am, the healthier I see you as. And when I know that I am the divine spirit, I see and acknowledge your divine spirit. Okay, I told you it was simple. I didn't say it was easy. And then, of course, there's a fourth way is spiritual readings and classes. We have a rich variety of classes at CSO Parker. I know Reverend Phil teaches them. I teach them. Dr. Nadine told me the other day in a Zoom call she's going to do a prosperity class in October. At the end of October, I don't know what you're doing, Reverend Phil, but at the end of October I'll be doing a class called Love Without Conditions. And I believe we're going to do that on Thursdays and Saturdays because I've been sensitive to the fact that some people prefer evening classes, so we use Saturday. Now, love without conditions, of course, is what this world really needs to let go of judgment. Isn't it easy to love with conditions? Well, I could love you more if you just changed this. Oh. Now the fifth thing. Life's events. Anybody here have a dramatic event occur in their lives? Ever? Let me count the ways. So those dramatic events are usually our Spirit's invitation for growth. And we can embrace those and use them for growth, or we can use them to curse. And this is when we call on our gratitude to step in and pull us forward. I'm reminded of this old story. Some of you have heard me tell this one. about the farmer that had the donkey that fell down the well back in the days when they had the big open cisterns on the farms, and the animals sometimes fell in them if they weren't protected. Well, this donkey fell down. So the farmer called his neighbors and said, I don't know what to do. My donkey fell down the well. So they all said, oh, we know. Let's just bury it. Oh, hurts my heart to hear that. So they began to throw dirt down on this donkey. And they threw the dirt down, and the donkey would stand there. It would shake it off, and it would step up. Throw more dirt, and it would shake it off, and it would step up. Well, there's a word for that. In our spiritual terms, it's called transcendence. So that's how we transcend, is we shake it off, and we step up. That is the fifth way of our consciousness elevation, and I know that intimately because my life has been about a lot of dramatic events. I've been so blessed. But you know what? One day I began to realize that is how I grow. And I can curse it or I can bless it. Now, having said all that, you now have your 5 steps for consciousness elevation. I'd like to go to the last point for the talk today, and I want to thank Kenny Johnson for printing up some cards that I thought this quote by Ernest Holmes was so powerful. It's on page 22 in this thing called You, for those of you who have memorized the book. And it goes something like this. And because Kenny had these cards printed, we're going to give each of you a card. And in fact, I invite you, seeing the number of people here, to take more than one if you want. Put them on your makeup stands, on your dining room table, wherever you need to see them, so that you remember this quote. Ernest Holmes says, and this is the key for judging not. When the time comes, when nothing that comes forth from you other than that which you would be glad to have returned, then you will have reached your heaven. Let's have a prayer. Divine Spirit, giving thanks for the inspiration, for all those with ears to hear, for this collective gathering of where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there I am also, for this expanded consciousness, for this inner growth for each of us. I am indeed grateful. I know that these words go forth into the universe to bless all of us, and that we each carry a piece of this out into the world, blessing the world with our consciousness, knowing that we are enough exactly as we are right here, right now. I know that the world is a better place because of each one here this morning, and each one who hears these words over YouTube in the next days. Saying thank you, Spirit, for the presence of life itself. And now, I invite you to join me in saying, And so it is. Is this time for a song, or am I doing the offering? You're so kind. Oh, it's our time for the offering. We will not pass a basket around, but those of you who would choose to give, there are 2 baskets here, and as our musicians provide our offering prayer, you may just feel free to step forward and give anything that your heart feels. I know that whatever you give will bless you and multiply in your life many times over. And so I know for each of us that we give freely and we give joyously from our hearts.
You guys know this.
I sure hope I didn't have the microphone on while we were singing. Aren't our musicians just awesome? I do have one announcement. Do we have anybody here for the first time, by the way? I didn't see anyone new, but I want to make sure. Laura told me to let you know that the board is still negotiating with the Grange here so that we might be able to have one live service every month, the third Sunday of the month. That's in negotiation, but as usual, Laura does an amazing job letting us know what's going on. So she's a president we can be proud of, right? Okay, now, having said all that and putting my foot in my mouth, I think that's it. We're going to have our closing prayer, which, do I do that?
Yeah.
I do, okay. All right, well, here we go. I know that for every person here and all those who weren't able to attend in person today, that we each have an amazing amazing week. That everything in our lives unfolds magically, mystically, and miraculously. That we inspire others to, just by their knowing who we are, by our consciousness itself. And I know that we are all safe, that we are all protected by the one protector of life itself. And truly, 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 that I know for all of us that our lives are, oh, I already said that. I say it again. I know that our lives are amazing. That we are spectacular lights of God. And we hold the light for others, knowing that we make their path easier just because of who we are. I bless CSO Parker and all CSO churches around the globe for their important spiritual work. I just bless you. I bless you. I bless your essence, knowing that the God in me greets the God in you. And so it is. Go forth and sin no more.
We are joy, we are love.